A new computer.
Introducing your hosts from Collingwood, Ontario, Canada, Jack Edwards, and his partner from Dallas, Texas, by way of Port Arthur, Texas, Big George. Together, they are the North-South Connection.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are live, and it's we're a little late tonight, but that's all right. We're in for a heck of a topic. We're going to hit it hard. We're going to hit it fast. This is one of those topics that gets talked about all the time. Anytime you talk about wrestling, this is one of those topics I think that gets talked about. And it's usually the top wrestlers to never win a world title. And I think in this case, we're talking about the WWF title. And for me, I'm wearing my Hacksaw Jim Duggan t-shirt tonight, first of all. Given to me by the great Hacksaw Jim Duggan, a wonderful man. You ever meet Hacksaw? The first thing you'll notice, the size of his hands are huge, big mitts. But this is the belt. Like, I grew up watching WWF wrestling because where I am in Toronto, close to Toronto, sorry. And so this is the belt I've always recognized. I know, George, you're a WCW guy, and nothing against the big gold, but for me, this is the belt. When they talk about the belt, this is the one they're talking about. And I'm excited because I got a list, and I think there's a couple clear omissions from the WWF title picture in history.
Absolutely. Some people I feel like got snubbed so bad during their run. And that's only because I feel like sometimes they didn't have enough time. Maybe time was a factor. Maybe, a lot of times it's time, because sometimes it's literally somebody sitting on the mountaintop that, you can't knock off, and you got to knock them off to actually beat that. But at the same time, some people actually miss the boat on a lot of opportunities. So this list is definitely going to go and ruffle some feathers as far as who we deserve as far as the top five. But at the same time, you know what? We always say, y'all can drop your comments. Y'all can share your opinions. I'm definitely going to listen. I'm not going to, shun you out. It's a conversation about wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. Let me have it. So come with it. And I think that, this is, like I say, a topic that kind of can go on for a long period of time, because everybody got a favorite that never made it. So let's kind of see what, how it goes.
Yeah. And I think it's, and you're right, for one reason or another, like timing, I think everybody on this list is definitely deserve of the talent level to have, held that title. Absolutely. And so we're going to kick it off, George. I want to start because I've kind of created this tonight in the way of the top five. And for me, my first selection, I think, a really good candidate for number one is Roddy Piper. I mean, he is, to me, he's the glaring omission, because when you look at how the WWE was built as the monster it became, obviously Hogan, but like the guy who set that whole thing off was Piper. And Tornado, my good friend, always says Roddy Piper is professional wrestling. He was an original. Nobody talked like him. Nobody walked like him. Nobody wrestled like him. Like, he was just such an original, and he was unbelievable. Like, when he was a heel, he was fearless. When he was and I think Piper's one of those guys, you look at his run from when he started in 84 to about really even 96, 97. Any era of that Piper, if you had to put the belt on him, he still would have been deserving. And I think that's, to me, is why, for me, he's the first pick.
Absolutely. I can't disagree with Piper being number one, or even being the number one that's mentioned. Because at the same time, like you say, there was no bigger star at the time that he was actually had his highest peak. At any point, you could have put the belt on him. At any point, he made a special guest appearance. You could have had him out there, taking that opportunity. Like, every week, Piper came with it. Like, even in the years that, because you say I'm a WCW guy, I watched Piper in WCW, and I'm like, he's the only motherfucker working at the time. So it's just like, hey, I understand why Piper deserves to be there, because even when WCW came around, they put the belt on him then. I feel like it was just like, this is because of everything else he's done already. This is not because of why he's here. I mean, at that point, everybody was kind of getting the belt, and so
he got the IC belt, and so he never, and he had a great match with Bret Hart.
Absolutely, that was one of the best matches I've watched as a kid. Like, I remember that wholeheartedly. It was great.
I don't, and I don't know why. Like I know Piper has a. I just watched the documentary on Piper and Mr. T, and I think Piper was going to stand up for himself and not be devalued at all. And so I don't know if there was hesitation on him to maybe do business, but I mean that guy was money, absolute money, everything. I mean, I know CM Punk. That's one of his big influences is Roddy Piper, which you can kind of tell a bit from the mic work. So that's my guy, George, Roddy Piper. Not first pick.
I can't hate your first pick. And I like the fact that, you came with a little bit of originality as far as the age group. I mean, you kind of have to pick one of the pioneers. I always consider Roddy Piper one of the pioneers of wrestling because at the end of the day, there's a certain class. I feel like there's Ric Flair, Roddy Piper, and then there's a couple other guys that you can kind of list after that. Those two kind of start the good and bad era in everybody's minds. And if it don't, hey, I feel like you might not know what you're talking about. But I think that's kind of where it starts. But my first pick, you picked a technical heel in a sense. So I kind of keep with the same thing. In a sense that Razor Ramon never got his shot. He never got his shot. I feel like there was no superstar impacting the world like he was impacting the world. Like, he made being bad cool in the best way possible. They had just came out with the movie Scarface, but at the same time, you could tell the lines were definitely separate.
Well, you can tell, it was 8 years after, but
right.
But I didn't know what Scarface was. Like, that's what made it cool.
Exactly. I didn't know. So it's like it kind of had its own thing because, of course, the gaps in between, when the movie came out and when the persona was actually presented. Even at that time, that persona that he put on, I don't think there could have been any other superstar in that place to do that. He was so good. He was a great wrestler. So when he came out, wasn't he the Diamond Stud?
Mm-hmm.
And when he came out as the Diamond Stud, one thing about that dude, he was always bigger. For some reason, I always noticed, like, even when he was in his slimmer days in WCW, and I think that's kind of where people like looked at him as his peak. But I seen his body do other things when he was a little bit, younger, and he was yoked,
jacked when he was young,
and he was still pretty big when he got, like I say, to WCW. So it was
he was always big. He was never not.
It's just like the competition got bigger. The thing is, when he came in to WCW, he came in with Kevin Nash. So if I'm gonna come in with somebody that's not gonna make me look big. But it's gonna be a 7-foot motherfucker who's huge and he's got it going, for himself.
That's one of the reasons why you're right about Razor. One of the reasons is I like him. He was like 6'7", but he was like he could work with a smaller guy and he could work with a bigger guy, and like he was
perfect size.
Yeah, he really was.
He really was
a big guy. Good punch, real good punch. Like
absolutely
good talk, like a great talker too. Like like he's just he was on my list. He was one of the guys I had on my list for sure.
Like I don't know too many people who got a catchphrase with just 2 words that he don't even have to say, and he just kind of like as soon as he grabbed the mic, you already know what he about to say. It's just
cue the record.
Hey, look, I knew it was coming. But like I say, he's one of those ones, like I say, he's so influential. He was so powerful with his words. His persona was everything. He could work with anybody. He just never was able to do the one thing that I feel like he deserved.
I don't know why they didn't with him. I don't know. Like, I think he could have been he was good.
That Intercontinental that IC match, that ladder match with Shawn Michaels. Bro, you can't tell me that guy can't go for the title.
Of course.
At the end of
it is one of those ones. It is one of those ones.
Like I said, that's why this list was created, to kind of set up the real reason why some of these people just didn't get it. And there's a couple more that I kind of feel the same way about that had a really, really good really good list of matches, a list of championships, but never just was able to put that cherry on top. So, like I say, my pick right now, Mr. Scott Hall, Razor Ramon.
Razor. All right. Well, I'm coming in. The next one is Owen Hart.
Absolutely.
Owen Hart. I mean, when he was working with Brett in that 94 era, I think that you could have put the belt on him any time of his career. Mm-hmm. He was so good, and he was such a great talker too. He just had the whole package. Like, it was just, I think Owen's one of those guys that I think should have got a shot.
I feel like Owen was the competition that everybody needed to be better. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, his skill in the ring and some of the people he faced in the ring, like, it was literally iron sharpening iron at a point, and then sometimes it was literally, Owen carrying the match in certain ways where you didn't realize he was actually carrying his mug a lot more than you thought. And I feel like there's a line, like, I'm pretty sure Brett would even say it. At one point in time, I would love to have lost the belt to Owen.
Oh, I'm sure he would have put him over.
I'm sure he would have did it.
They put him over in WrestleMania 10. That was a great match.
And I'm saying, like, if he ever would have won the belt and Owen would have been like, you would have never beat me, and started that rivalry, you know how much the Owen family, the Owen Hart family, and the Bret Hart family would have fed millions at that point if they could have got that. It's like one of those stories that we wish we could have, but we never can have, simply because of time. It's just, it didn't work out. But at the same time, even before that, I think way before that, he should have had a shot. Yeah, I feel like at that point, you could still say he deserved his time, but at the same time, I think he was one of those people who he could have got his bones a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, there it is, George. You're next up. Who do you got?
I got my wild card right now.
Uh-oh.
So, like I said, I felt like there's some people who just had everything and wasn't able to get to that mountaintop for whatever reason, whether it be time or whatever else. I don't know what it was that kept Shelton Benjamin out of the World Heavyweight Championship rankings.
Interesting.
But Shelton Benjamin was one of those people who I felt like
record.
Because I'm gonna tell you right now, when watching Shelton Benjamin wrestle, there was no physical freak better than him at that particular time. Maybe Brock Lesnar, and then of course that's just only because he was bigger. But pound for pound, and I think even in amateur wrestling, Shelton Benjamin was able to overcome that Brock Lesnar thing. So
I think he was a national JUCO, and I think he was a national champion.
Yeah. And I'm like this. He had every accolade that you could possibly name other than the World Heavyweight Championship. I mean, in my mind, this is how I legitimize this. And no disrespect to this person, because he is some of y'all's favorites. And I know what y'all gonna say after I say this bullshit. But y'all gave Jeff Hardy a World Heavyweight Championship before y'all gave Shelton Benjamin one. And to me,
oh, interesting.
There's a argument that this man was just a little bit more talented at certain things. Jeff was a high flyer and more entertaining. Give you that.
He had a bit more charisma.
He had a bit more charisma as far as him,
like rock star in him.
Right. He had that.
But
that wasn't Shelton Benjamin's game.
Nope.
His game was just being a better athlete than you. And he would prove that every time, no matter who he was in the ring with. Sometimes being the greatest athlete in the ring was his downfall. Like, when he took that super kick from Shawn Michaels, do you realize how far across the ring he jumped?
No doubt.
Like, I mean, and yeah, he's killing it right now in AEW. But if he was to ever get a World Heavyweight Championship, I feel like it's way too far past overdue. Like, some people should have got it a long time ago. Like, there's some people on this that could be on this list because they didn't get the World Heavyweight Championship until later in their career, when it was just like you say, sometimes when like from 2008 to 2021, where it was just being passed around. And then some people just got it because they got it. I remember the one more notable person, and this is kind of besides the point of the whole show, Jack Swagger getting the whole World Heavyweight Championship, and nobody knows why. But, and at that same time, Shelton Benjamin was right there. So I'm just saying, you have talent, But this is my one wild card, and I feel like I was screaming from the mountaintops that Shelton Benjamin deserved the World Heavyweight Championship one week.
I think it might have been his talk, but I mean, he was such a good athlete and such a good talent there. I don't, that's a good pick. I was like, I knew you'd come up with somebody that I didn't imagine, that I wouldn't think of. So I like that pick. So Shelton Benjamin, we're looking at number 5, and I got to throw this guy out here. I think to me he belongs in the top 5. Is Mr. Perfect.
That was my yes.
Yeah,
he was
Mr.
actually
Perfect.
my alternate pick. So
Mr.
yes,
Perfect.
no, Mr. Perfect can definitely be there. And I think, who else? Like, there was nobody better at that time as far as being a persona that you could sell. He could have been the ultimate heel, baby face, whatever he wanted to be. It didn't really matter. He could have played the medium line. He did that in WCW so great. It had everybody confused. Like, is he a heel? Is he a part of the Four Horsemen? Is he a part of the NWO? What is he here to do? And he's just that good of a wrestler.
It was so good.
He had a perfect set. I feel like, and this may be, foreshadowing or just kind of thinking now, if you can move certain things in certain places, if you could say he would be technically, if he was the World Heavyweight Champion, I feel like he would have been like the first JBL. Because I'm not saying that he would have, took shortcuts, but Mr. Perfect would have definitely took his shortcuts.
But
and then he would, his persona was definitely one of the more perfect ones. So it was just like, you can't beat me if you can't beat me. And that would have got on your nerves. I guarantee it.
I liked it. I thought if they had given the Warrior won the belt and they gave him Rude out of the chute, I like Rick Rude, but that was a mistake because I thought he had already worked with Rude last year. I thought they should have given him Perfect and then Savage. Perfect would have been great with the Warrior. Like, I think Mr. Perfect, he's just, again, one of those talented guys that just for one reason or another never got it, but had the walk, had the talk. It was great in the ring. A super athlete, could catch his own footballs. Mr. Perfect.
I mean, who else? Mr. Perfect was definitely one of those ones, man.
And George, I think this list is kind of easy to make. I want to throw this out there. I'll just toss this. Let's throw it out. I think for this list, if we could go, I think number 5 would probably be Shelton.
Okay.
4 would be Mr. Perfect.
Agree.
I probably have Owen at 3 and Razor at 2 and Piper at 1.
Piper at 1.
Yeah, I think that's
that perfectly.
I think that's the top 5 list, and I think that's a good list. And I know people might argue Shelton Benjamin, but I mean, we have to look at it too. I was trying to think of people around that time who didn't have the belt. I mean, that's a guy that people remember. Didn't he win it once? Like, remember he won it and it was a schmoz? Was that him?
No, I don't know. That
was Jericho. I know Jericho did it. I thought that,
but
see, they could have done it with Shelton and it would have been over.
Yeah, I think they like I said, I think they had a shot for it, but it just doesn't seem like, they wanted to pull the trigger on him for whatever reason. I don't know who it was, but that's just how it goes. So now we can get into the list that everybody's probably looking at, like, why y'all got him in here and why y'all got Shelton Benjamin at 5? Well, this is why. This honorable mentions list is probably going to be one of the greatest honorable mentions lists you can probably ever have. Because you can probably make a top 5 out of it. So, honorable mention. My first honorable mention, Umaga.
I was thinking of him. Yeah, that's a great one.
Dominant at that time. Him and John Cena's feud. I was so ready for John Cena to drop the belt to him, but it never happened. And that's one of the ones that kind of got away. I feel like you can honestly say him. Another honorable mention, Jake the Snake Roberts. Can't forget about Jake
Roberts, yes.
Can't forget about him. I feel like there's a lot of people.
We got to mention Rick Rude.
Richard Irwin Rude has never been actually made an honorable mention or a top 5, really. But he's going to make it today. He could have even made the top 5, but He's definitely in the honorable mentions today.
And that's not a wrong opinion, Kareem. Like, I'm not disagreeing, but I think it can't all be like dudes from the 80s. And the ones that we do have, like, I think Piper, Razor, Owen Hart, and Mr. Perfect would probably be above Rick Rude. But it's like, it can't all be. No, he's not number one. He's not. He wouldn't be number one. But I like the idea of adding Shelton Benjamin, because from that time in that era, he's probably one of the guys who probably deserved a shot and deserved a chance. So I don't have a problem with that. Rick Rude, obviously, we mentioned. I'm going to throw a guy out there again. I just, Paul Orndorff, I think, as a guy who never had the belt, maybe should have got it. He was again, I paid money to watch him, so watch him fight Hulk. So to me, and he was a good talker. He had Heenan, and like the WWF was always a babyface territory, so you were always going to lean to the babyface. But I thought Orndorff was one of the guys that kind of deserved.
And you know what? I'm gonna put another one on there that should have won championship. That's gonna ruffle some feathers. Cesaro.
Ah, all right. Yeah, Cesaro, I don't mind that. Yeah, I've said that many times.
Cesaro, and another one, which I don't know how this didn't come up to me earlier, but Wade Barrett at the time, you honestly should have put him in there. At the time, he was running the Nexus. He was probably the top heel in the company.
Yeah,
it wasn't nowhere you can go where you feel like he wasn't gonna get jumped. Now, of course, I don't think that it was the time to kind of just be hopping off the belt and putting it on anybody and trying to make him a superstar. But I feel like Wade Barrett was good enough to do a lot of things that they didn't push him to do. So
yeah, Kareem has a couple good suggestions. Bam Bam, I think, is a good one. Goldust, I think for sure is a good one.
The only thing about Goldust is you gotta. At what point you gonna put the belt on him? At what point in his career? Like, because at what point in his career was he I'm not trying to, like, Dustin Rose is one of the best athletes of all time, as far as being able to do it as long as he did, be able to do some of the things
you could have as a heel. You could have put it on him as a heel. He would have been.
But what year?
96.
96.
Yeah, maybe instead of Sid, you put it on Goldust.
I'm not mad at that.
And then he goes to WrestleMania and beats the Undertaker. Or gets beat by the Undertaker.
How long did that match last?
Because that would have been. They would have had a good match. They had good matches. Goldust was a hell of a worker, of course. So
yeah.
I like. I'm always going to throw Ron Simmons on the list. I think I think when he was Farouk in '97 was probably the best time for him.
Absolutely. That Nation of Domination run was probably one of the most iconic runs in the world, simply because I know for a fact that a lot of people just was like focused on that part of the show, period. Like, they were focused on that part of the show and nothing else. The World Heavyweight Champion could have came out there. They still gave it attention because it's a champion, but you were there to see the Nation of Domination for at least a couple weeks because they were the hottest thing walking.
Well,
and that was because of Farouk. So
yeah, and Dynamite, they were great. Like, he was awesome. Like, so I like Farouk. There's a ton of guys, but I think the list we came up with, George, Shelton Benjamin at 5, Mr. Perfect at 4, Owen Hart at 3, Razor at 2, and Hot Rod at 1. I watched that. I watched that Mr. T, Roddy Piper A&E documentary. I've been watching the LFG too. I thought, the LFG was interesting. They had a couple matches there, and I just like to see the comments from the coaches. That's a lot of what what's really good. And they had good, Bubba's. I tell you what, I like Bubba, man. He's great on that show. They're all good. They all have, all of them. Like you mentioned, Mickey James. Like, there's one who probably should be in the Hall of Fame, and maybe that's an upcoming episode. Maybe people who need to be in the Hall of Fame this year, because I know that They've announced Michelle McCool and stuff, but I'm hoping Demolition gets in.
Demolition deserves it.
They deserve
it's
it.
time. It's time.
Super. I love those guys. Like I had a great time with them, and they were the nicest guys in the world. It's ridiculous, but I hope they get in. They deserve that recognition because I mean, when I was 9 years old, they were it, man. They were, my buddy Oliver and I did a lip sync thing at school. The Demolition theme song as Demolition.
That's crazy.
Like, yeah. So I mean, I think they deserve it. And I mean, so. But I've been watching a bit of that. Yeah. Oh man, they were so good. They were so good. And they whacked McCully, who we had on the show. They whacked him with a chair so hard the one night. Just, I'm like, that's great. Again, two big fellas though, big boys,
big bruisers, man. Some people who just know how to work. Some people who were just really good. I think Demolition definitely deserves their shout out at this particular point in time. I mean,
yeah,
you don't want to forget them. I think that's one of the things about wrestling is that you can easily, forget and remember, who slips through the cracks and who kind of just keeps going. So like I say, I'm glad that, they are circling back on certain folks, but like you say, they kind of need to go ahead and put Demolition in.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's and like another name was Ricky Steamboat.
He never, Ricky, he never had that opportunity either.
The WWE belt. He had the WCW one, but not the WWE one.
And that's timing. That's literally timing. And all its,
timing.
I mean, sometimes you have to think about why these certain individuals didn't get that opportunity. Sometimes you got to think about who's on the mountaintop at that time.
Yeah.
Roddy Piper had to deal with Hogan.
Everybody had to deal with Hogan.
Right.
Right.
Shelton Benjamin had to deal with Triple H.
But
and that's
ultimately one guy making the decision. So
right,
the same guy was making the decision.
Exactly. So
and he was making it with his wallet for the most part. I understand why he did it because I mean, it worked out. It worked out money wise, but it would have been nice, like
a certain product, and you have to perform and produce that certain product.
Yeah.
So when that product is being asked for, there's no deviating from the plan. I get it, but at the same time, some stories are better written than told.
Yeah, I tell you what, no, but I'm enjoying that LFG and that Piper thing. Like I was saying, was so cool, and he was adamant he was not going to put over Mr. T. He was like, I'm not. I'm like, he's an actor. He's not a wrestler. And I was like, you got to respect that. Like the guy was out protecting the business. And I mean, but his work was just so good. And I mean, it would have been cool if he had that opportunity at some point. Like it's one of those ones where it's like, like he should have, it would have been nice at some point. Like even if you didn't give it to Warrior and you gave it to Piper, like I get why they gave it to Warrior. Like I get it. Like every kid was, was rocking on the Warrior. Every single kid. And so it was like
the music, the energy, what he brought to the ring. Like everybody fed off of that. Like you can't deny a certain level of talent and a certain level of pop when you see that. Like some superstars you couldn't deny. That's why Shelton Benjamin is number 5 on this top 5 tonight. Some superstars you just can't deny. And that's just how it goes. So,
well, I mean, I'm not denying him. I thought that was a good pick on the list. I was like, I didn't think of it. I was like, But again, he was a talented guy. I'd put him on it. I'd put it on him now if I were AEW. If I were AEW, I'd put it on him yesterday.
Just speaking on AEW, I'm not very I don't watch Dynamite every week, so it's not my thing. And I think I make time for enough wrestling that I can always kind of say, I'm watching NXT, I'm watching Raw, SmackDown, and everything in between. I'm doing all the pay-per-views. I'm watching TNA half the time. I'm doing all that. I'm trying to make sure that I can see exactly what's going on and how everything is kind of transpiring. So AEW doesn't come up a lot as far as I have a life. All right. But at the same time,
you like what you like.
And that too. It's just the simple fact that I feel like I said, if they were ever to put the belt on Shelton Benjamin, it's definitely not because of anything he's doing right now. It's all because of what he did previously. In my mind,
but he can still go, and he's still in shape. Still can,
and now I'm not denying that his physical ability doesn't say he doesn't deserve it. Now that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it's one of those situations where it's a long time coming where you should have been at the top. So,
listen, I'll tell you right now. I think AEW has the opportunity to put over some older guys.
Absolutely.
And really make it work. Like, I've been clamoring for a long time to, like, Dustin Rhodes can still go. What a story. You want to talk about finish? Put the belt on him. That's a great story. And I think they've got guys to work with him. I've always said you put Cesaro on the list. I always said they should have put the belt on Cesaro. Like, again, another guy who's just so good physically. I think there are guys there that I'm like, Miro was another guy. I heard he's coming back to WWE now, which is awesome. I hope he comes back as Rusev. I really do. I hope he comes back as Rusev.
It makes sense for him to, because I'm not gonna lie, the pop that he gonna get if that music hits and he has Lana coming out with the flag and all that like he did before.
Well, Lana probably won't be there.
Yeah, no, she probably won't.
I don't think Lana's gonna make this one.
Yeah, she might not be there for the reunion, but if he has a new version of something like that, or like a new flag holder or something, like, it's just, he needs his own, like,
but like something. Get the older guys over to put the young guys over. Like, I mean, like, I think there's opportunity for them to do things that haven't been done with guys at a certain level. Sorry to cut you off, George, but I think that, like, no one's ever put a world title on Shelton Benjamin. And I think that he deserves it. Nobody's ever put the belt on Cesaro. I think he deserves it. Dustin Rhodes, even today, is still in good shape. You could send him out there. He knows how to work a match. I mean, I just think that there's guys that they have that they could be, But again, like, I don't know.
I think the real thing that we have to realize is that a lot of times we don't have to kind of glorify certain people's careers by putting the belt on them, but at the same time, some people deserve to have the belt put on them. And I think that's what this kind of topic kind of alludes to. Not like, I don't want to see Shelton Benjamin just to take the title just because I want him to take it. I felt like he deserved that shit. I feel like there would have been no better person at that time. Like, I feel like they deviated his storyline on purpose so he can lose a little bit of his spark. Not gonna lie, sending him out there with his mom, I don't know. That was kind of different. But at the same time, I just, like, I don't necessarily know if a championship run is coming out of that. It kind of got gimmicky. It kind of got, started to be watered down. And then you start to see him lose his thunder. But at the same time, still one of the best athletes in the locker room. Still one of the best attitudes to kind of be around. And there's nobody that, I could say it'd be better to work with at that point. So Shelton Benjamin deserves his burn, baby. Like, I'm giving it to him tonight. Like, sir, you did it, and you deserved it. They screwed the pooch on that one.
Yeah, I think so too. But I do like a lot of honorable mention list
are taking off.
The honorable mention list. Umaga's a great one. I thought of him while we were talking. Yeah, Umaga, obviously Rude, and Jake the Snake. What bisexual? What's he talking about? I don't know.
He's talking about Damian Priest getting the title shot before him.
Well, I mean, Rick Rude hasn't been alive in a long time, so he's not really a contender for it, unfortunately.
And and I'm like, you can't hate on another man's career after the fact. Like, it's just I mean, why wouldn't he get a shot right now when he's alive and kicking? Like, what?
Yeah, but I like how you mentioned Wade Barrett for that time and place. He probably, when he's with the Nexus, you could have put the belt on him. It probably would have worked.
How did it fit, Reese? He rivaled John Cena very well at that point. And
yeah,
the thing about working with John Cena, they they're not going to pair him with nobody he can't work with, and they work really well together for a long period of time. So
yeah,
I liked it.
So great. So George, just said it, like, I want to know, because I've had Netflix. You don't have this. You don't have the. You still have Peacock, right?
I got Peacock and Netflix. I got everything.
Yeah, because Netflix. Because up here, everything is on. Everything's on Netflix now. So, but what kind of wrestling you been watching? You watching any old wrestling? Speaking of all these old guys, I've been watching a ton of stuff from the '80s lately. Been rolling through the WrestleManias and the SummerSlams.
My thing here recently, and this is probably going against the grain, just doing something kind of random. I've been watching a lot of bloopers, and you've been hearing me talk about this recently. Just a lot of bloopers in real time. Like the Elimination Chamber is coming up, so I went ahead and watched the match where the Undertaker was walking to the ring, and he unfortunately got burned on the way in.
That's not a blooper. That sucked.
That was a horrible way to start a match for anybody. Like, the thing about it for me was he knew, and everybody with eyes knew, that goddamn fire was too goddamn close. Like, everybody can see, that's kind of coming kind of quick. When I was watching the match, if you ever noticed the Undertaker's entrance, the fire has a pace to it. It's not something that you can see. These motherfuckers was trying to cook his ass at 350 for 4 hours, because I ain't seen nothing like that. Like, bro, I was like, bro, that's a little extreme. And the shout out to Michael Cole, because if you watch that match or watch the beginning of it, when the Undertaker gets burned, I don't know if Michael Cole exactly knew what happened, but he sold it throughout the entire match as the Undertaker was fired up. And now that I know what happened and I'm watching what happened, it's just kind of like, in my mind, that's not entertaining, but it's kind of funny to laugh at now, because he's like, oh, he's running to the match, he's fired up. I'm like, he's fired up, all right. And
that sounds like a line that Vince sent in.
It has to be. It had to be, because throughout the match, he kept alluding to, you seen how the Undertaker started this match? I'm like, bruh, no, that's just not how that actually worked out.
And give him credit for working the match. Like, I mean, he went in and had to work a cage match after being burned. I mean, Jesus.
I mean, and I don't know how bad it was, because he took,
it wasn't good.
Yeah, and he was pouring water on himself, and you can see, like, they kept angling the camera away from him. Like, I seen the clips of him actually pouring the water on himself. That was a camera angle that they had, but wasn't in the chamber match in any scene. Like, so at certain points, you couldn't even see the Undertaker in the ring. They kind of put it where the camera was kind of away from him half the time, where it was kind of panned where it's on the right on the side of him, so you couldn't see him directly. But I don't know if he was going through it or not, but he came in, worked that match, got out, and you can tell by the end of the match he was still burned and hot. So I've been watching the bloopers, the real-time bloopers, and kind of knowing some of the old wrestling stories that have been said on podcasts. I'll listen to a couple podcasts and listen to some stories about some matches. And that's been my thing here recently, is I want to watch the moment where you felt like this. And then, of course, I want to see it in real time versus where you could have possibly been thinking this, or where you could have been looking at certain things as well. So, like I say, the Elimination Chamber has been one of the big ones, because, like I said, that's what's coming up right now. So I've kind of delved into that. A lot of the championship matches that I've been watching recently have been some of the more long and drawn out.
Other than Hell in the Cell.
Yeah.
Hell in the Cell. Sorry, go ahead.
I've been trying to watch some Iron Man matches here and there, because I feel like there's some Iron Man matches that I haven't just been able to fully give the full attention to. And
Speaking
some of those
Rick
matches
Rude,
are great. Yes, that's one of the ones I got to go back and watch.
I liked it. I always liked that. I was never a fan of the Shawn Michaels Bret Hart Iron Man match.
Really?
Never. Because I think, like, it was great. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's a shit. Like, if people have it as the greatest match of all time, I can get it. But for me, it was, the pace was slower and there was no falls. And that was like, the one thing about the Rude Steamboat Ironman match, and even though it was a half an hour that I really liked, there were a bunch of falls. And
Yes.
I think the no falls thing, I love the finish going into overtime, but I thought they could have went into overtime 2-2. And I thought that would have created a bit more. That's just for me. But the Rick Rude one was good. I think Brock and Kurt Angle.
Brock and Kurt Angle probably was the match that kind of elevated the Iron Man match again.
Because Triple H and The Rock had a good one.
Triple H and The Rock, like that's what I'm saying. But look at the gaps. Look at the gaps in when they had a good Iron Man match between two contestants. It's been a while since we had a good Iron Man match that's going to be something that they can actually call for. And you know what's a great topic? Who do you think they could put in an Iron Man match right now that you would sit and watch for an hour?
Jacob Fatu.
And versus who?
Braun Breaker.
Somebody might die in 30 minutes. So
I don't think so. I mean, Breaker could go an hour. I mean,
I know they could. And I'm not talking about they would die as far as their physical ability. They're gonna hurt each other if they have to fight. It's like two tanks constantly running into each other. Something's going to get destroyed.
Well, like I'm for it. I'm all for it. I think I'm a fan of that. I mean, let's let them have it. I mean, but I think Cody could probably do a good Iron Man match.
I mean, he did have a good match with Roman that lasted almost about an hour. So
Roman could do it. I mean, a lot of the guys on the roster, Seth could do it. Like, it's just not something you can have all the time. Like, and I think you have to have a certain rivalry and a certain, the certain guys to make it happen. I mean,
the only thing about, and this is the thing, the person I see who could have one of the best Iron Man matches, I don't know, because he wrestles so often and so hard.
Yeah.
If his body would hold up the entire match. And that's Seth Rollins. I think Seth Rollins in an Iron Man match would be amazing because there's a lot of moves I feel like he can, him and Jacob Fatu would probably have one of the greatest matches in the world if it was an Iron Man match, in my opinion. No disrespect to Braun Breaker. You know how I feel about Braun. But
hey, man, I'm not saying. And this is the old head in me, but you got to remember, and obviously it was a different style and different time. We talk about these Iron Man matches, but you got to give credit to the guys in like the NWA champion, like Jack Briscoe and Dory Funk, who went town to town every night of the year and went 60 minutes with whoever the hell was from the local territory.
Right.
Like, and then went 60 minutes with like Jack Briscoe, and Ric Flair went 60 minutes with all those guys, with, Barry Windham and, the match that he and Steamboat had. Like, they were doing that all the time. And, I mean, those are guys that obviously today don't get talked about enough because they're, like, way back. But, like, the ability to go an hour in a wrestling match, like, I mean, and say what you want about wrestling, it's a physical struggle.
I think it's a struggle because, of course, it's like I played football. So I already know getting up and trying to run on a field for X amount of time as much as you possibly can, and then getting out there and trying to do it again is already a grind. The thing about wrestling is it's constant. It's constant action. Like, yeah, there's some times where they spill and splat, but they're about to get back up and they're about to go ahead right back at it.
Yeah.
And so that physical grind is just constantly something that I feel like is a lot of people's up and downs kind of, but that's the thing about, like I say, Iron Man matches. Like, you got to have a certain type of contestant. You have to have a certain type of, cutthroat ability to kind of make that work. Like you said, the rivalry has to work.
Yeah.
I think Drew McIntyre would be good in an Iron Man match. You know what?
Gunther,
absolutely. So
Gunther's probably going to be the guy who ends up having one. It seems that kid's type of match, right?
That would be a great thing if he would kind of make that his thing. Like, the only way you can win his championship is if you beat him in an Iron Man match.
Yeah, I don't know if they could do that every time, but I think he'll definitely have one. But
of course they wouldn't.
You know what? We talk about guys who don't deserve the belt, who haven't got the belt, or and Kareem mentioned Jacob Fatu, but I always like a guy, and I'm not saying he belongs in the top 5 or even honorable mention, but I think that, and obviously I think his best years are yet to come, but even at his peak is Dom. Like, you know, like, I think there's a guy that you could, like, he's just got it, man. Like, he's got it, even though he's a chicken shit heel. Like, he's the best chicken shit heel they've got. And I'm just like, I think, you know, if they gave Dom like a heater, like a big ass bodyguard, some muscle, I think you could put the belt on him, because then it's like like I said before, Shawn Michaels Diesel effect. But like Dom, and I always thought like a guy like LA Knight, I'm just like, why can't they pull the trigger? To me, he's over. I mean, he's like, just let's do that. You know, like to me, those are two guys of today who deserve a shot at the title, I think.
Two guys of today that I think deserve the title. Of course, I feel like Braun Breaker deserves a shot at the title.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a given.
That's a given. But yeah, I think LA Knight is probably the one that's most credible in my eyes.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like they're kind of short. Yeah, I feel like he's getting that Shelton Benjamin short end of the stick, because it's almost like you don't know when to pull the trigger, but you don't want to waste time and not do it. And I feel like they're kind of playing limbo with certain superstars like him. So
no, Dom doesn't have to do that. That's lame. Dom just has to be. Dom will eventually become a babyface on his own. He doesn't have to change anything.
Yeah, nah.
Because the best heels become the best baby faces.
Yeah, Dom has his own thing. He don't have to necessarily.
They need to, like, people still want to hate him, and I just think you put the right bodyguard with him, just standing behind him. And it's like, yeah, I'm his muscle, and then he wins the belt because he cheats to win. Like, that's, you know, just like his dad. You know, it's like, so we can.
I mean, they've done it with a lot of people. They've done it with Dolph Ziggler. They've done it with, you know, Shawn Michaels, Dolph Ziggler. Like I said, when Big E came out with Dolph Ziggler, and, you know, that was his thing. Like, he would come out and have Big E on his side, and Big E wouldn't say shit, but just kind of put that big ending on people. And then, of course, Dolph Ziggler gets in and, you know, wins the World Heavyweight Championship just like that. But I don't think they have to do that, you know, necessarily that exact scheme with Dom. But if they got him some muscle, somebody he can depend on, like, kind of put him in a situation where he's not necessarily getting jumped, but he has like that situation where he needs a little bit of help, and this big ass motherfucker come out of there. Like, you know, I don't know. It could be anybody that you can pair him with.
You got to pair him with a guy that you see as money, because you got to pair him with a guy who's eventually going to turn on him.
Of course. But,
you know, so, you know, like a guy that maybe you see as like, he's down the line, he can be something, you know, but, and I don't know who that would be. Like, I'm not talking like a guy like Obafemi. That's not a role for him. That guy's a main event star now.
I thought about Obafemi as soon as you said it, but I'm like,
no,
you can't mess up what that already is. Don't stop what's cooking.
Like, yeah, they've already kind of done it though with AJ, with Omos. Like, but you know, like maybe him. Like, I think,
but I don't see Omos actually having an opportunity to kind of make a meaningful heel turn that would make Dom a better superstar. I don't think that. Like, I feel like if you do that with Omos, like I said, it has to be somebody different than what they've already had before.
It's got, yeah, he's got to be new, and he's got to be fresh, and he's got to have I think, a future where they see as a future.
Like, if you're gonna send out Omos, you might as well go ahead and get the Great Khali to come out here. Like, no, like if you're talking about big bads, like you want to go ahead and start. Like, it's a new era, and I feel like there's a bunch of new talent that there is gonna be. There's
the guy on Moose. Oh, maybe, who knows?
I mean, Moose good.
There's the guy on LFG there. If you haven't watched it, there's a guy named Jasper Troy, and he's a big dude. And I'm like, he'd be perfect, because I think you watch the guys, and guys like Taker and Shawn Michaels, and they're all seeing potential in the guy. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that could be a guy, like, you put him in that role, and then eventually, he could figure it out. But I'm just like, I think he's got a lot of untapped potential. I really do. I think people want to hate him. You got to give him a reason. Even when you think he's going to turn babyface, I think you got to keep him heel, because I think he's so easy to hate. And especially if he's like, hiding behind a monster, it's even more easy to hate him. So
easy. Like, now you can't get to him, and he's just that pipsqueak motherfucker. He's not that good, but it's this motherfucker that's in front of me. That's the real problem.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of, like, he don't necessarily, like, when he was, walking around with Rhea Ripley, that's kind of what she was for him.
Yeah,
and she was
exactly.
her own entity. And then, of course, he needs his own version of that. He needs his own way to kind of,
and he needs to be on his own, not with Judgment Day, on his own.
Right. That Judgment Day thing is, I'm not saying the ship is sailed, but you can honestly tell when a faction is not necessarily a faction anymore, guys.
Yeah.
It's done. Go ahead and put a fork in that steak.
I'm not a fan. I think all those people can splinter off and do different things. And
I feel like JD McDonough can do great things without necessarily being in the shadow of Finn Balor, or having to have Carlito there with him. And I'm not saying Carlito is a bad person to have as far as a tag team, but I'm thinking to myself, we brought Carlito back to kind of be Carlito, not necessarily in a faction. And I'm not saying I don't see it, but at the same time, he's always been a bad apple, so it's not necessarily out of his character.
Well played. Well played.
So,
George, a topic that we were talking about today with some of the fellows was, apparently there's a rumor Vince McMahon's starting a wrestling promotion again. Is this actually going to happen? Like, is this a real thing?
Man, hang me. Like, don't make me watch that. The thing about it is, like I said in the chat, I think there's an audience that Vince McMahon still has, unfortunately. And I'm not saying that to be a weird person about it. I'm just gonna be honest. Like,
he does.
He did shit. He did shit. Like, it's just like Hulk Hogan. He did shit. Yeah. So, like I say, there's people who really still feel, very confident that Vince can run a business. There's still probably people who feel like he can definitely do things. I think it'll be, if there's another random wrestling company that pops up, his name won't be on it, but there'll be some kind of tie to him. Because I know for a fact that he knows his name is not as marketable as it once was, simply because of, the last few years. So what other person that you can tie yourself to somebody with some money, like, who's willing to listen to your ideas and let you make some decisions on, a fly, if that's the case.
I know, like, you're right. He does have an audience, and there will be people that will watch it. But I'm like, he was for me, for 2008 to 2022, he was out of touch. Like, he was out of touch for that long period of time. Like, I know, like, I just don't. I don't know what he's going to do on his own.
Rag and the ECW championship. What the fuck you mean? He might as well have been wearing goals. Like, I just it out of touch is kind of like.
And I don't. How old is Vince? Like, I think he's 78, something like that.
I think Vince is like 78, 80 almost. Like, he's closer to 80 than he is to
79. 25. Well, I hope, like, does he still have that shitty mustache? I mean, like,
he looking like a fucking villain. Like, he looked like a
silent movie villain.
He looked like Sinestro from the goddamn Lantern Corps and shit. But at the same time, I'm just like this. Vince has an audience. He'll definitely take his time to kind of do whatever he really, really wants to do. I think that he's one of those who wants to go down swinging. Everything is, has a limit that can be pushed. And, he kind of wrote the book on that. And if you think about, somebody not being able to kind of let it go when they need to let it go, prime example. But like I say, there's an audience out there for him, I guess. It just ain't going to be me. I'm not.
Yeah, like, I'm not tuning in, like, to see, but someone's going to give him a shot. But George, we've had a lot of fun. We had a great top 5, a great episode. But I think it's time to hit the hay now. Head out.
Yeah, nah. we gotta bid this thing and do. We got more wrestling to talk next few days. Of course, we definitely coming up with some more fresh, hot topics, some more stuff that y'all can argue about amongst yourselves, or you can argue about it with us. Yeah. I love to argue with you, or even just have a moderate wrestling conversation. I'm not that kind of dude, but at the same time, like I say, we're here to have these conversations because, of course, this stuff needs to be talked about. The top 5 people who ain't never got the opportunity to be a world heavyweight champion need to be talked about because, of course, we can't remember the people who made some of the superstars that are the superstars. And sometimes there was a superstar in the midst that just never was able to kind of get that shine at that time. So these are our top 5, and we kind of put it together ourselves. I thank y'all from the bottom of my heart. Like, share, and subscribe if you got a little time.
Yeah. Have a good night, everyone.
Peace.